They've done nothing since their existence. I still don't understand the model. If you look at the stock, I mean, if you're an investor in Redfin, I feel sorry for you. In the last 5 years, they're down
That's a good
64%.
one.
In the last year, they're down 18%. They're down 64% since they IPO'd. There's been one blip on the radar, 21 and 22, where the stock performed well. Newsflash, every stock performed well during those couple of years.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, economic news, and the direction of your local market, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti, back from Cuba, and Byron Lazine back from Disney World. I would probably want to go to where Lisa was. I was in Philadelphia all winter break. So welcome back, guys. Happy New Year. Glad to see you.
Well,
We're doing what's one of my favorite shows right now. This is the prediction show. I got my ass kicked in the last year's version. I was easily had the worst predictions out of anybody.
You were the biggest
Byron had
loser?
if I was the biggest loser, I could lose some weight probably. So
that's what I have
that's
for this
fine.
year's biggest loser, Tom Toole. I maybe I'll change that.
Hey, if I'm a biggest loser, I think there's some people that must be winning massively then, because if that's the case. But we're doing our prediction show. We've got some over-unders. We've got some new categories. We got to give it up to Byron. You had probably the juiciest predictions that hit last year after rethinking our predictions. I mean, what do you think about this year, Byron? Give us your 360, high level view before we get into the actual predictions we're going to make here.
Well, I agree with your assessment, Tom, but the comments from last pod didn't agree. Everybody was all over Lisa. It was quite disgusting in the comment section from last pod on YouTube. And
sounds like a real estate event. It's the same thing, right? They just swoon over Lisa.
That's exactly right. You go to any city in America and you're at an event, you're at the lobby bar, and everybody rushes over to Lisa and they just, want to pepper her with questions, which makes sense. I do the same thing when I'm around Lisa. But yeah, they agreed with Lisa's scoring her, what I thought was some DQs in her answers, but they gave Lisa the nod just by a small margin. And you can check that out on the last pod. But yeah, overall, what I think about in 25 is a lot of us were talking about getting through 24, cutting costs, really thinking about, profits. And Lisa talked about this on like either last pod or the pod before. And I think we should get into it in future pods here. Really like doubling down on focusing on profits versus top line. And, not just when you're looking at 23 and 24, you're thinking about, what cuts. And now it might be more strategically, picking, placing your bets in the right buckets for 25 that can really impact your, because you can only cut so much. So, where you place your bets in 25 and, what are you investing in for leads and all of that type of stuff to really impact profits. And
but I don't think it's just cutting, and that's what I'm gonna.
That's exactly what I meant. Yeah, you're not just cutting anymore.
It's how do you grow some of the other areas, and I think that's what we don't focus on enough within the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, listen, what I think overall in the macro, and which is kind of what this prediction show is about. This is unlike almost any other knowledge brokers we do every year because we don't cover. There's not a major topic the last week of December to get into. We're really just going to do our fun predictions. This isn't something, by the way, I would like say to a client like, oh, well, Tom Toole said this on Knowledge Brokers, and that's where I think this is just us having fun. I'd love for everybody in the, on YouTube to put into the comments where you think some of these are going to come in at. I'd love to hear from the listeners, what your thoughts are, what your gut feel is. This, like Logan Motoshami, when we get into mortgage rates and home, he has a model. We're not modeling. We're just kind of, going out there and projecting. So, but on the macro here, I think in 25, there's going to be massive opportunity for certain companies to take share. We saw it at the end of last year. Compass makes that major acquisition, huge acquisition at the end of the year. In December, you see like Sirhan raised 45 million. There's things that are happening that lead me to believe 25 is going to be a year of movement, of consolidation in some respect. And I think there's going to be some people that really pull ahead in 25 in an obvious way. And so maybe that'll reflect some of our winners and losers when we get into companies and all of that here at the end. But let's do the let's get into the over-unders, Tom. Let's kick it off.
Sure. So to give everyone an idea what we're covering here, I just want to give the agenda up front so you know what to expect, and make sure to listen until the end. We've got home price predictions, mortgage rates, where they will end the year, the number of home sales in 2025, as well as the number of real estate agents. We've set lines based on data and intel. This is not just a guess. We used Lance Lambert. I got to give him massive credit. If you're not checking out Resi Club, he breaks down like 14 different predictions on mortgage rates, and he averaged them all together. That's how we came up with this stuff. So
Lance, I owe you a response. He's coming back on here early part of the year.
All right.
Nice.
Is he going to remember his laptop charger?
No,
he's my biggest question.
He's fully equipped.
Fully charged.
Yeah, he's
fully
ready.
charged. All right. Well, glad to have Lance coming on. Then we're going to hit biggest winners and losers, both companies and individuals. That's going to be at the end, so you want to stay tuned for that, as well as the best real estate stock to own and some wild card predictions that each of us have about what may happen in 2025. But let's start with the numbers, right? We're in the NFL playoff season's coming up, college bowl season. Let's get some bets down here. Maybe DraftKings can pick this up.
Oh, I crushed that Ohio State game the other day.
That was a good pick. I mean, they got smoked, the Ducks. Oh.
Yeah, you and the broke agent got smoked. I was crushing.
I didn't pick Oregon. I didn't pick anybody.
Oh, okay.
So I laid off. All right, average home price predictions. So we're going to set the line here at 2.7%. So this is based on 26 different forecast models that were been put out there by economists and all the people that pay attention to this stuff. This is a national number. 2.7% over under. Ladies first.
That's the average of those 26 models.
Yeah, the average is 2.7%. So we're taking the average of all these models.
Clarify 2.70 or 2 points.
Let me go to the source article. I believe it's 2.7%.
That's the way you wrote it here, Tom. 2.7.
It is 2.7.
So 3/10 under 3, Lisa. If that makes sense.
2.71 would be the over.
2.71 would be over. 2.69. Ooh, 2.69 under.
I'm over.
Okay, Lisa's over. Lisa's the first on the board here.
Yep, I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be above 3, but I think it's going to be a little bit higher than 2.7.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to take the under. I want to gain points where I can when we go and calculate this against Lisa. So I'm going to take the under. I'm going to go with 2.69 as my official prediction, which would be under 2.7. And I just think, a normal, 2.5, 3, those are kind of normal numbers. And I think we lean more so. You're going to have, parts of the country that blow that 2.7 number away.
Yep.
Think the Northeast where you have an inventory issue, but you're going to have areas where there's maybe larger Florida and Texas that might even be in the negatives that really impact that national number. I'm going to go under, but still in the positives, but a couple points or something.
So I analyze these charts pretty thoroughly. I'm going to take the over. 12 out of the 26 forecast models had over 2.7%. So I'm going to go with the minority choice. The people that are predicting over 2.7%, Housing Wire, Fannie Mae, Realtor.com, First American, Redfin, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Apollo Global Management's at 10.8%. That's a ridiculous number. They are by far the outlier there. The second highest is 5.5%. The people that picked the under, NAR, Zillow was at 2.6%. So Byron, you're giving a very Zillow-like prediction here. CoreLogic, TD Bank, Mortgage Bankers Association, Freddie Mac. So people who are smart on both sides of this, I'm going with the over. Again, 12 out of the 26 predicted the over on that. So we got 2 overs and 1 under for Byron Lazine. We're going to mix up the picking order here, so Byron can't just go the opposite of everyone to gain points. So we're gonna be a little strategic here. Mortgage rates 6.34%. That was 14 different major research groups are predicting. That's the average of where they anticipate rates will be coming in at the end of the year. Byron, you get to go first this time. Over under 6.34%.
Yeah, and I nailed this one last year. I was the only one that said over. I think we were at 6.375 last year. So the numbers are actually pretty close to where
Mhm.
we set the over under last year. I nailed the over despite the loud voices that were talking about the year of the fives out there. That never came anywhere close to fruition. 634. We're starting the year at 7.07. So this is the average throughout the year, which means to get to an
Mhm.
average of 634, we'd have to see some, some movement
Big drops.
down. Yeah, some big drops.
Yep.
I'm going to unfortunately go over again, and I'm hopeful that we'll be closer to 6.5 as an average. I don't see I'm not, anyways, nobody can see it, but I'm not predicting, as Skylar Olson would say, a crisis-like event in 2025. Anything can happen, of course, but I'm going to take the over of 634 on the 30-year fixed.
All right,
I'm
Lisa, you're
here.
next here. I'll go.
Oh,
Okay.
you're
All
fine.
right. Well,
Yep.
I'm also going to take the over. And I look at these predictions here, and I think it's important to break down who's saying what. So, first of all, I don't like the 6.34 number because mortgage rates are like 6 1/8, right? 6 3/8, 6.375. So I don't like that number from where it's placed. If it was 6.38, I think it'd be a little more strategic. I'm going to take the over. The people that are predicting over is Redfin at 6.8, Capital Economic 6.75. CoreLogic 6.5, and then you've got these numbers. NAR 5.8%. Like, I mean, Lawrence Yun. Like, is this guy? What are we paying him for?
How
Like,
does
that is an insane number.
How does NAR go at 5.8% on the 30-year fix? Yet they had on the last category, they said that home prices would not be over 2.7, right? If you get rates to go down that, think about how much competition is going to come into the market. And so their numbers don't even, like, I'm under on 2.7 and I'm over on 30-year fix. It kind of like, it kind of meshes together. NAR so far apart from each other on where I would expect those two to impact each other.
I'm glad we brought this up because I think you got to look at the predictions as a whole. Like, what are people actually talking about? And this is a lesson for knowledge brokers out there. Don't be the person that talks out of both sides of your mouth in an appointment, because the smart consumers will pick up on that and realize what you're doing. So I'm going over I think everything you guys said, like, we've got a way to go here to come down. With the new administration coming in, they're talking about, I think we're just in this market for a while with where rates are. And by the way, this is a very normal rate historically to be in the 6 to 7% range. So for a lot of reasons, I am going with the over here. I'd love to see lower rates, but that's just not in the cards in my view. Lisa, what do you got?
Well, so as much as I would love to take the Byron strategy and go under just to be in the opposite, I can't. Everything that you've both said, one, we're starting the year north of 7 to get to an average below 6.5 at the end of the year, and below 6.375. We'd have to see some rates below 6 at some
You'd have to
point
get
during the
moving
year.
in a hurry.
Mhm.
Right. Well, and I mean, we're not going to see movement in a hurry, I don't think, which means we need to see some troughs that go below 6 to kind of pull it down. So despite the fact that I want to take the under to take the Byron strategy, I'm also an over on that. But I do think that we can see an increase in price and lower rates, but not that low. So
Yeah.
I agree. Yoon is way out in left field with the two predictions, but I think that there's also just a bunch of demand that's been waiting for lower rates. That old date the rate and marry the house, that saying that needs to go. I think that those buyers are kind of realizing that this is what it is, right? And you can't put off the purchase forever.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, the 2.7 number on home price, I could be dead wrong on going under. I mean, I'm like, it'd be by a nose hair if it's under.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pick up a point there for next year so I can do a celebration on the recap show. Yeah, I could certainly see 4% home price appreciation and be over on the 30-year fix. When I say NAR is just so far apart, they have under 2.7% home price appreciation. Then they have 5.8 on the rate. I mean, if we hit 5.8 on the rate, this market's going to explode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and affordability all of a sudden gets better, and people can bid more and have the same payment.
Right.
I mean, there's so many economic components here. And Lisa, what you said is very pertinent. there are more 30-year-olds than there ever have been in the US right now. And a lot
Yeah.
of those people have not bought houses. And when I go to listing appointments, I tell folks like, hey, you might get a first-time buyer here on a move-up home, but it's not who you think. It's somebody that doesn't own anything. They're getting married in their mid-30s, having kids right away. This is a household formation issue. So for all those reasons, I mean, I like our picks on that one. It seems like we're united here. So let's move on to number of home sales. Now, this was a tough one to put an over-under on. So we sourced this from our friends at Realtor.com because they asked Byron and Lisa at the Realtor.com event down in Georgia. They actually asked you this question: is it going to be over/under? And they set the line at 4.25 million homes that sell in 2025. I'm going to take the over mainly because I sent you guys an email to prep for the show, and I said 4.3 should be the line. So that's kind of where I'm coming in. I don't think it's going to be many more homes than 4.25 million. I do think this pent-up demand is going to cause some people that like their life is just moving on and they're making decisions. And I've even seen that with some of the appointments that I've been on. Folks you never thought would move. They just said, you know what? We're making the move because it's best for our lifestyle, for our home situation, because they've been holding off maybe the past couple years. So line's 4.25 million. I'm going a slight over at 4.3 would be my guess, but anywhere over 4.25 million gets me the W. Lisa, what do you think?
I am an over as well. At the Thrive event in Atlanta, I think I had put mine at 4.312. I don't remember exactly what my math was, but I had picked a percentage and multiplied, and I came up with 4.312, and I'm sticking with it even today.
Yeah, and so NAR right now in November 24, they had us at an adjusted rate of 4.15 million. So we've, back a couple months ago, we were at the 3.875. That's when Wall Street Journal said lowest since 1995. I mean, 4 million is still pretty low. They got us at 4.15 million, which was the best number we've seen since March when we came in at 4.22. So, I mean, it's really about where the end of the year, because you look back a couple months, we were below 4. Now we're over 4. It's really where that end of the year is going to come in. 4.25 is such a good line. It's really hard because I think it's going to come in around there, but I'll join the party here and I'll say slightly over because I think that's in line with what I said at that dinner at Realtor.com. I want to be consistent there.
I like consistency. Like we said, we don't talk out of both sides of the mouth here on the Knowledge Brokers pod. So very good.
I'd love to know everybody in the comments. If you're on YouTube, of course, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We got a bunch of amazing guests coming on Knowledge Brokers here in 25. But I'd love for you to drop into the comments if you're over on YouTube and not Spotify or Apple, what your thoughts are on these, especially, this one. The total number of sales impacts agents across the country so much because of the opportunity factor. But I'd love to know your thoughts.
Well, it impacts the economy too. I mean, you look at, housing makes up 17% of the GDP. I mean, think about all the people that get put to work every time a home sells. So there's a lot of benefit there if it comes in over. All right, our next one here, we're going to go to Lisa first. It is the number of real estate agents, and this is actually realtors because that's how we have to track this with NAR. We had a little difficulty setting the line here because the numbers that were coming out from NAR, it looks like they're rounding up to saying they have 1.6 million members. The only numbers I'm finding online are 1,515,000 and change. I took the under last year and was way off. And what did we set that at, Byron? 1.4. So we were, that's
1.4.
We set that at 1.4. This was one of the ones I got right, being over. But we set it at 1.4 because of the Lisa, was there something above your head? You were looking up.
I think it was an eye roll.
Oh, that was an eye roll. Okay. I didn't know if, the birds were flying in your office or something. We set it at 1.4 last year because there was this, not a consensus, but there was a strong feeling that there was going to be a drop in realtors saying, hey, I'm out because of everything going on. Not as many people had the ability to get out with the tie-in. And so I think 1.5 setting the line here this year because we stayed above 1.5 all year. Some people round up and say 1.6, but it was in the 1.5s, high 1.5s. I think that number surprised a lot of people, but we're setting the number now at 1.5. A year later, is there going to be agents that is there going to be more agents? Because some
Mhm.
have removed themselves from NAR.
Yeah, I'm struggling on this one. I'm gonna be honest because I think the wild card that's shaking out is how do we define realtor, right? So if you think about what's shaking out in Arizona with can folks begin are we going to have anything shake out with getting rid of the tying agreement so that folks can join just local associations versus having to join the national association? And so if we're looking at it and saying the number of members in NAR versus the number of people who keep the realtor designation versus the number of real estate agents. So I'm struggling a little bit. But I'm gonna go over.
Lisa's taking the over. We're
Yeah,
in an
I
over sort of mood here. This is
I
Well, I'm the
am.
yeah. Go
What were
ahead.
you gonna say, Byron?
I'm over again. Yeah, I'm over for the second year in a row on even this number being 100,000 higher, 1.5. After experiencing NAR in Boston, this is a beast, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to.
It's not going to be overnight. I
Yeah,
think. How long did it take for Burnett Sitzer to fully shake
you're,
out? That
you're
was
talking 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah,
5 years.
so
Okay.
there you go.
Pre-pandemic is when that. Think about how long ago that was.
Yeah,
It was 2019, right, Byron? I think that's when.
2019.
Yeah,
So I think we're in the same with the tying agreements. I think that there's going to
That's right.
be it. I think if we're really honest, there's going to be more litigation that pops up about those tying agreements and having to be a member in order to get access to the MLS. But I think it's kind of like my prediction from last year about Simon Malls. I think it's too early to see the
hmm
impact of that. And I think
That's
if
right.
we were to revisit this in 5 years, I think that the conversation would be a little bit different. But
Yeah,
I'm over.
I'll be shocked if we're like coming into the end of the year and we're like, wow, we were way off on the 1.5 number. You'll have new agents enter the market, of course. They'll be told, hey, you got to join, and in a lot of cases with the tie-in, you do. And to Lisa's point, if we set an over under on tie-in agreement lawsuits in 2025 at 10 over under, I'll take the over on that. I think there's gonna be plenty of lawsuits,
Yeah.
people
yes,
trying to break up the tie-in. NAR has made it explicitly clear, and this is coming from the CEO, that they will fight tooth and nail on
hmm
the tie-in agreement because it is the model, and they will not give up an inch on that. I think they'll push harder on those lawsuits than you've seen them push any other lawsuit to protect members. They'll protect the shield with, they'll empty out the artillery to protect the shield, whatever they got to do.
yeah. I agree with you for the same reasons. The legality is going to take too long. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. It took 5 years for Sitzer Burnett. Everyone didn't think it was a big deal in 2019. Well, guess what? I mean, it obviously came to roost. You also got to look at, we just came through a renewal period and the number went up. So if there was ever a time for the number to drop, it would typically be a renewal period. And in my point of view, at least, and we had some people even on our team just saying, hey, I'm out. I'm not going to renew. I don't like real estate, which is fine. But that didn't really make a difference in the size of our organization. And here's the other stat. 47% of real estate agents, realtors, haven't sold a home yet this year. So we're not talking about productive people. Some people like to have their license. They keep it there. I mean, they're paying NAR the dues every year. So when you have that, and now if it was a productive number or there was like productivity standards with NAR, it would be a lot different. But you've
Yeah.
got almost half the organization isn't doing anything real estate related. So that number is going to stay there. And the fact that it went up this year, like if we were going to set the 5 year, I would probably take the under, but this is, they're here to stay. I think for all the reasons we talked about. So, all right, those are our over unders. Now we've got some other categories. So we're going to save winner and losers and the wild card for last year. Last year we had the best real estate stock to own. And this, I don't think any of us got this right. It was a 0 across the board. I know Byron and I went with Zillow. Lisa, I forget what you picked. And I'm going to go with home builder stock, specifically DR Horton. I think they're going to have
Mhm.
big growth this year. They're a national builder that doesn't have a horrible reputation. I wouldn't be surprised that stock price jumps up 18% from where it is right now. The demand that exists for homes is driving this. And I think that would have been the biggest winner last year. I don't see that changing too much. And the fact that these national builders can come in and compete and can make land acquisitions, and they're big in the states where there's a lot of new construction, which we don't have a lot of here. Home builders and specifically DR Horton is where I see the best stock to own in real estate in 2025.
Byron, what you got?
It was such a blowout when we took the whole list. You can go back to the last pod and look at it. But when we looked at the Zillows, the portals, the national home builders, the brokerages, it was such a blowout last year with REAX, Real Brokerage, being so far ahead in terms of percentages. And when I look at my own Fidelity account of like kind of my play investment money, like my financial advisor does whatever he does, but like the stuff that I like to just play with, the one stock that, and I didn't pick it last year, but the one
Mm-hmm.
stock that I find myself feeling comfortable putting more on is REAX. It is Real Brokerage, and I think that there's still huge upside. They're only at about 22 to 25,000 agents. I think that brokerage gets to an EXP like number of, 80 to 100,000. Not they're not going to gain 60,000 this year, but I think they get there, and which means that they still have huge upside. And I could see that stock going from a $5. What are they today? They were in the fives lately. I could see them being over a $10 stock, doubling up next year. They're at 462. I still see huge upside. I mean, the last year, again, they went up 179%. I could see them going anywhere from 50 to 100%, which would probably be the winner again. Interestingly enough, Zillow took a beating in the last month of the year after having, a real pop up to, the mid 80. I think when I sold, Zillow was right at the 52-week high at 86. The last month they've lost almost 12%. They're down to 73, which could give them more upside. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if at some point this year Zillow crosses $100 stock again. Okay, but that still would be, a 25% increase or something, where I just believe Real could cross 50%. They crossed 180% on the stock last year. I'm going to go with REAX with Real.
All right, I'm actually going with Zillow, believe it or not. I think the other side shaking out with Zillow is knowing that they are rolling out enhanced markets and
Mm-hmm.
going deep into ZHL across the country. And, you know, kind of some of the stuff that's at play with their flex teams and membership fees and that kind of stuff. I think Zillow is going to do some pretty decent stuff with their earnings and drive up the stock price this year. So,
Yeah.
and I think as they invest more money and continue to build out the super app and get consumers with that totally integrated experience, I think that they're going to become an even more unstoppable force.
Yeah, and Zillow is one of those picks that, I mean, that's the other real estate stock that I find myself buying back into, even though I just recently
Yep.
sold most of mine. Like, I'll buy back in here at some point, probably in January. Because I feel comfortable. Like, Zillow was at $40 at one point in 2024. Actually, for an extended period of time, they were in the low 40s. My feeling on Zillow is, even if something happens and they go down to that 40 range and I bought back in at 70, I'm so confident in the long term, of holding that stock, that I get that back because of how much of a stronghold they have on brand. And so I can hold it for a long period of time. I feel very safe buying in. It's a
Yep.
safe pick for sure.
Yeah, and they're starting the year with a decent drop going in. So I think that they've got, to
Mm-hmm.
your point, I think that they've got the room to grow
Yeah.
up. I think real is another really good one. I don't think that they're going to be able to maintain that level of growth. I don't think that they're going to drop, but I don't think that they can maintain the level of growth in another year.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I like all these stock picks. I mean, I think any of them. I mean, with the intel we know, I mean, the reason I mentioned DR Horton is they do have more entry level homes than other national home builders. They're large enough to, deal with some of the things happening across the country.
They can
Zillow,
buy down the rate too, which is
yeah,
a big deal.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get some mortgage business. Lisa, you mentioned ZHL. And of the three of us, I believe I'm the only one in enhanced market right now, and I'm also in the
Right.
largest market out of the three of us. I can tell you that they are forcing the issue with our agents on getting more loan originations there. So that obviously, I think we've been in enough coaching groups and mastermind groups. Some people have lenders that are teams our size. Obviously, Zillow sees the value there. I think there's pluses and minuses to it. Now, they obviously have the scale that none of us have in terms of size. And I can tell you it is a measured number that is constantly talked about on our flex calls. So the fact that, that's another revenue stream
Yep.
that they're expecting and forcing the issue and talking about, continuing partnerships with people that have a high origination rate, that's going to be a way for them to generate revenue without having to go outside their core competency. So I think that's a smart move and a smart pick on your part. So we will see. By the way, none of us are stock advisors, so you can't sue us if you don't like these picks.
That's right. This is not
All right.
financial advice.
Yes, I just want to be sure. So we're gonna go winners and losers, and then we've got our wild card pick here, and I've got to stop in 17 minutes, so we're gonna need to move through this a little quicker. So biggest winner, company wise, in real estate in 2025. I'll be happy to go first here.
Well, first, how are we defining winner?
It's a good question.
This is super subjective, and that's kind of where we came last. When we did the last pod when we were reviewing this. This is going to be one of those opinion-based projections, so you can define winner however you want, Lisa, and that's the beauty of this, and we can let the comments decide. Because you've got a lot of different companies. Are you bringing a portal in? Are you bringing a brokerage? Well, they don't. I guess now some of the portals are brokerages, but they're not really measured the same way. Are you bringing in a builder? So I think you can define it how you'd like.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go first here. So this one's a little outside the box. I'm going to go with Prologis, the industrial real estate company. They do a lot with warehousing and logistics and e-commerce. And I don't know when the last time you guys, like Lisa, you had that mall pick, right? I think I've been to the mall once in the past 24 months. And it's because they have like other attractions there, like taking my kid to an escape room for his birthday party. So the amount of shopping that gets, actually, the other time I was in a mall was for dinner in New York City with Josh Rubin. Horrible choice. So would have, but so they have a lot of like warehousing and e-commerce, and I think that's going to ramp up even more in 2025. And the demand for warehouse space increasing, because of like ongoing like expansion of supply chain and the digital economy. I think they're positioned really well to grow as a company, a little outside the box here. But that would be my pick for biggest winner in terms of a company in real estate in 2025 would be Prologis.
All right. I'm taking realtor.com, not to kiss ass, as you
of course.
Wow, she must be in the doghouse.
Hardly. But I think that I think we're going to see that the war between first, second, and third is going to really shake out. I think realtor.com I don't think that they're going to jump into first place and outdo Zillow in what they're
doing. And they wouldn't project that based on the gap.
Nope. But I think that I think that they've got a lot that's really set up to put them solidly into an undisputable second place, both with the consumer and with agents. And I think that everything that they're doing behind the scenes, both on the agent side and the consumer side, is just starting to click. And I think if we look back 12 months from now, I think we're going to see that their brand, again, both with consumers and with agents, will be even more solid than it is today.
So, so you have brands underneath a company. I guess Realtor.com would actually be that example.
Yeah, they're owned by News Corp.
They're owned by
they're
News
owned by
Corp.
News Corp.
So
Yep.
I could go that same direction, right? A brand underneath a company.
Plant it. Let's see what you got.
So I have a few down here, but I think
Just one.
yeah, if I'm picking one,
Second place is the first loser, Byron.
I would. This is a safe pick, okay, because they've already won so big in the last couple of years. But if I were to pick one, I'd pick Follow Up Boss, and the reason for that is, now I understand that it's basically Zillow owns them, so you're basically, I guess, saying Zillow. But Follow Up Boss has come into 2025 cashing in $500 million, being bought out by Zillow, with no risk at all and nothing but upside as Zillow continues to move their Flex partners into the Follow Up Boss CRM.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a guaranteed pathway to increasing users in 2025. Like, they're going to increase users.
But how many Flex teams do you think are not yet on Follow Up Boss?
But it's not just, so yeah, that percentage is probably,
well, it's going down. I mean, we
obviously
transitioned
it's
this
going
year.
to be,
You did, Lisa.
the point is it's going to be 0% in 2025.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so if
I
you're
agree with
unfamiliar with what I'm saying, is every Flex team in the country is now being moved by Zillow as a part of the partnership into using Follow Up Boss. Okay. And so now if you desire to be a Flex partner or, a stronger partner with Zillow in 2025, you're maybe thinking about moving into Follow Up Boss. And it's not just that, it's that Follow Up Boss integrates with everything at this point, which means they compete with nobody. And anytime you kind of get a consensus from an agent, the most powerful CRM, it's Follow Up Boss right now. And so, for some of the CRMs that are in a vulnerable position, losing users, somebody has to win big, and that has been Follow Up Boss. I think that continues. Now, I could have said what Tom said earlier about Zillow Home Loans. They have such a small percentage of loans, and as they continue Zillow to drive that product, they have nothing but massive upside. Same thing with Zillow Listing Showcase, continuing to acquire users there. These brands underneath Zillow have nothing but upside, which ultimately supports Lisa's pick with the stock of Zillow being, maybe the best stock to own. But I'm going to go Follow Up. I guess it's probably a pretty vanilla pick, but that's what I'll go with.
I mean, it would have been more risky pick last year. I think, the writing's on the wall, but look, you've got two large teams like sitting on the pod here that transferred. And I don't know about you, Lisa. I don't have any regrets. I'm feeling really optimistic about it, especially now that I'm like 6 months in to the transition. You're in the weeds right now. You're in the worst part of it, where it's like getting everything done, but we're more than 6 months. Actually, it's been 8. So, all right, Byron's got Follow Up Boss. Biggest winner individually. I had a hard time with this one. I'm not like Byron, where I can just love pointing out people when they win and lose all over the place. That's not my style. So I'm going to go with one that is related to, and this is individuals for sure, dominant listing agents. I am so clear that listing agents control more than ever now with these NAR lawsuit changes and having to deal with compensation and negotiating everything. And when I say dominant listing agent, what I mean is someone that takes more than 3 listings in a year, because we know that 50% of listing agents only sold 2.7. They understand how to communicate offers of compensation or lack of offers of compensation, whatever the seller's trying to do, in a way that continues to get sales done. And that's really how you get your time back. This is an old school one, because I feel like listing agents have always won in the market, but now more than ever, you're controlling what happens in your business when you're taking listings. So I think it's pretty vanilla, but that's my pick.
You did this last year. You didn't name a name.
No, I didn't. I picked Knowledge Brokers last year.
Yeah, well, I'm the same.
Yeah, same thing.
Jesus,
I don't. This is what I got. What do you want from me?
I wanted you to pick a name, an individual.
Fine, I'll pick a name. You want me to pick a name? I'm going to go with Tamir and Sharon at Real.
Well, that's 2 people.
Well, okay. Well, then we'll pick Sharon, because I think what Sharon is doing has elevated that company to a level where, we've known Sharon for a few years right now, and I think there's a strategy here that's really going to benefit them long term at Real Brokerage. I don't want to get into my predictions about what's going to happen there. I don't think that's fair to anybody. I'll obviously tell you guys off air, but he has raised the level of that company. And Byron, to your stock pick, I think that's how the stock goes up with leadership like Sharon. He's way more dynamic than Tamir. I've met both of them. I know Sharon a lot better. Sharon's a thought leader in the industry, and I think he's going to continue to grow that brand at a massive level that will help the stock price. So there you go.
Well, I guess I shouldn't have pushed you into an individual because that's the name I had written down.
That was mine too.
Oh, that's terrible. We can't all be given Sharon.
I had one. You gave me a hard time. You could have just let it go.
Sharon is the most accessible leader in the industry right now. When you're talking about these publicly traded companies, okay?
Yes.
When you're talking about publicly traded brokerage, which all the main ones basically are now, his accessibility to speak to agents on every level. He's out there on the road, man. Like the amount of speaking he does, which is obviously a driver for recruiting at Real. He is the biggest recruiter at Real, and it doesn't have a downline. Obviously as being, part of the executive team
wrapped in there and some other stuff here though.
But
so let's be real.
But he understands what the agent does day to day. And so if you're a leader of an office or a team, the way he leads on understanding how to train, understanding how to coach, understanding how to speak agent talk is something that if you're not doing now, you should be doing in 25. It's a brilliant model for success. And he's got so much momentum behind the way he's leading that, that's not going to stop in 25. He could be able to name almost any position he would want in the industry. I know he's committed to Real, but he has leverage. And so I think that's going to build even more in 25.
And my ad is that not only is he accessible, but the thing that I wrote down is that he's approachable. And there's not a lot of folks who lead companies the way that he does, where I think everybody feels like they can go up and engage in a conversation with him. He's easy to get to, but he's not intimidating, if that makes sense.
He was also, when we did the BAMIs in December, he was voted by all the agents that voted the most useful follow on Instagram. He gives free information out all the time. He's like believes what we believe. Like, if information should be accessible. And there you go, Sharon. Sharon got it.
No, man, that was unexpected. Unanimous pick here. All right.
Now I'll tell you a name I had written down as well as a contender. And I've been critical of this name to some degree in the past, but the reason why you can't go winner is because there's so much. I mean, I guess I had it as number 2, but there is so much friction when you get into clear cooperation with this name. But Robert Revkin has proven a lot of the doubters and haters wrong when he said, hey, we're going to dig back into being profitable and we're going to make more acquisitions in the future. And he's proven that out. And it could be a big year for him to gain that his piece of the stage back in 25.
All right, we're gonna have to hurry up here. I bought another 5 minutes, but we got to get losers and wild card picks. So biggest loser for a company. Byron, why don't you go first here?
Redfin. They've done nothing since their existence. I still don't understand the model. If you look at the stock, I mean, if you're an investor in Redfin, I feel sorry for you. In the last 5 years, they're down 64%. In the last year, they're down 18%. They're down 64% since they IPO'd. There's been one blip on the radar, 21 and 22, where the stock performed well. Newsflash, every stock performed well during those couple of years. So the stock has really never done anything because they've never done anything in terms of, I don't understand what they are. Now, they do have, number 3 or 4 website traffic. So they have an asset there. They do put out a lot of data and they have good tools on the website. But Redfin, unless somebody comes in and acquires this publicly traded company, a la News Corp, to put themselves neck and neck with portal traffic on Zillow, against Zillow, unless they get acquired, they just stay status quo. I got them as the clear loser coming in throughout this year.
Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, so I like that one. They didn't come up on my radar. I like them. I went with Open Door and any of the iBuying companies. They're struggling hard up here. Where they had kind of come into market, they were doing some stuff. I also think that their partnership on the Zillow seller side of things is struggling as well. I think that Zillow is getting the advantage of being able to say that they have a cash offer. But I don't have data. I don't see behind the curtain. I don't know what is actually turning into acquisitions for Open Door, but I don't think it's going as well as it was anticipated to go.
I think they get acquired this. I mean, their stock is just pathetic. But yeah, that's not a terrible pick. They are definitely not a market maker, as everybody would have said. And you have a great company like Zoodealio, which partners with agents, which is really doing something unique in the iBuying space. It's a really powerful tool.
I like both those picks. Redfin was my number 2 choice. Number 1, and this is it's a sub company. It's Homes.com. I mean, the reputation that their lead flow has. I mean, we know a lot of people that buy leads, right? And I have heard nothing positive about Homes.com partnerships with the amount of money that they are charging people, with how they are aggressively pitching agents. There's not a lot of data behind it. And obviously what's happened with their tiff with realtor.com, I think a lot of stuff came out that CoStar's a winner. I want to be very clear. Like, their parent company is going to, just like much like News Corp. But Homes.com, I don't see it happening. And when you get a bad reputation in this business, there's a very finite amount of large teams that are out there. Like, I'm talking, 20 plus agents, 30 plus agents that buy leads at scale. We can go through some of the Facebook groups we're partners with, or we're part of. There is not anything positive that I see about Homes.com lead flow. And I don't think it's going to continue. I think it's going to be more the same. And they can keep spending money on commercials, which is great, but they've got to deliver on the product.
Yeah, CoStar is a winner. I mean, the company's
I want to be clear about that. Yeah,
Andy Florence is a legendary CEO, greatest of all time, probably in the space from what he's built decades ago. But the stock, CoStar, is down 13% over the last year. And I think a lot of that has to do with the obsession CoStar has right now in cracking into the residential space. Spent $1 billion in 2024. To your point, Tom, didn't generate a lead that, online lead buyers, teams across the country desire. The teams still want that realtor.com lead. Their agents want that realtor.com lead or that Zillow Flex lead.
So I think all 3 of these are good picks. Let's go into individuals. So I'm going to piggyback off of Lisa's pick with Open Door. We talked about this before the show. Eric Wu, the CEO of Open Door Technologies. I think, Byron, you mentioned Zoodealio, right? Like, Open Door, they're trying to go in and buy these homes. Zoodealio partners with agents, and what I'm clear on is the best thing for sellers is to give them options.
They have
the
4
iBuyer could be a
when
good.
They do it, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then you have the option of, hey, we're going to take it to the market and maybe get you a great price if you got time. I think with inventory challenges, changing interest rates, market volatility, and the iBuying model, like it was, when the market's hot, sure, it sounds great. This is kind of like discount brokerages, like Byron's pick of Redfin. When the market's hot, things are great. But when the market gets challenging, then people look to, all right, we need to maximize our price. We need to do what's best for us. And the iBuyer, although it's easy, doesn't always generate a great result. I think that company's in a lot of trouble. They haven't been able to break into the Philadelphia area market. I know they're in Boston now. I don't know about Connecticut. So I see that company is in a lot of trouble. They could get bought, like you said. There's also a lot of market saturation, and you're dealing with wholesalers on top of it. So there's just a lot of competition there for those folks. I don't like that company, and I think Eric Wu is in trouble. I mean, he's in a high risk market. He's the CEO of a tech company, and he's got a lot more to lose than if the company fails.
All right, Byron, who you got?
Last year I had Glenn Sanford. I think with everything swirling around EXP, that I nailed that. I'm going to go with another Glenn and stick with my Redfin theme. I'm going to go Glenn with 2 N's, Glenn Kelman, the CEO at Redfin. Just think it's going to be, I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. They've hung in there, but I think it's going to be a real challenge for Redfin.
Yeah, I've been struggling on this one. I don't have a clear loser in my mind just yet.
Not true.
Facts.
Not one you can say on the pod.
Don't
I'll leave
have
it at
one
that.
I can say on the pod. Yeah, I I think that there's going to be some fallout in the leadership of NAR as the spending continues to get scrutinized. I don't know exactly who's going to take the fall for that. I think there's a couple of different options that could shake out there, but I'll say leadership at NAR around the spending aspects of things. I think is that, like I said, I think it's just, to your point, Byron, I don't think they're going to fall. I don't think it's too big. They're unstoppable at this point. But I do think that there's going to be a little bit more scrutiny, and I think they stand to lose some of those bougie budgets they've been.
Yeah, but their salaries aren't going down. But yeah, I mean, I know.
Bob Goldberg was my number 2 pick, specifically. And I when you look at corrupt organizations,
well, Bob Goldberg, he's retired. I mean,
but I mean, he's probably the poster boy for that. I mean, he's got the dog walker and the pied a terre, and these organizations, and you can look at corrupt organizations. I'm not going to get into some of the details here of where this observation comes from. They typically take care of their own. And I think, Lisa, you're right. Like, I don't know where the fallout's going to happen. They usually look for like a scapegoat in a lot of these situations.
Yep.
And they try to take care of each other, even though they know they did stuff wrong. They're just trying to cover it up. So, and you see that throughout history. This is not something unique to NAR. So that's a great observation on your part. I like that pick. All right. Who's got a wild card prediction?
Well, here's my question for both of you. Might be a little bit taboo, and if needed, can edit it out. What's your prediction for what happens with buyer agency commission? And like, does it end up increasing or decreasing through the first full 12 months since the settlement?
I think it's going to stay relatively the same. I don't think
I was going to go with flat.
I don't think you're going to see much movement on that. The reason being is, you have some agents out there and teams increasing their individual position in the market, but you do have a race to the bottom. Remember, Tom said it, over half of the agents did 0 deals. So if they get offered something 0.5% lower than the average out there, they just take it because they're dealing with 1 deal. So you have a race to the bottom on agents who are not knowledge brokers, who don't invest in providing a great experience for their buyers. And so they're, lucky to get the low number that they're being offered.
All right,
I agree with Byron.
I think it's going to be fun to watch. It's kind of what I've been saying to everybody. August to December of 24 was the time when everybody kind of adapted and adjusted. But I think as we get through the first full 12 months, I think 2025 is going to be interesting to see how that shakes out.
If I had to pick, I do think it'll be flat. I don't think much has changed, but
which is fascinating because that was the whole intention, right? Drive it down. So it's crazy fascinating.
If I had to pick, I would go down because I think inventory is still relatively tight.
Yeah, I agree.
It's outside of Florida and Texas, but
I agree with that. So the thing I see happening, and Byron, this comes from our interview with.
I have to go in 1 minute too. Just FYI.
Jack at T360. I think we're gonna see some more mergers, not so much nationally, but locally with aging brokerage. Like, I mean, there was a major problem with aging brokers right now, like leadership. Like, they're all in their 70s, they're past retirement age. I think a lot of these people are going to be selling and just getting out of the business entirely. So I would watch that very closely, and that might be an opportunity for some of the people listening.
That's an obvious. I think my big wild card is in that same category, that you'll see a major publicly traded company get acquired. And it could be Open Door, like you're saying, Redfin could be in that category. You could see a brokerage in that category, or disruption in their model, selling off parts, and leave it at that. I think you could see a major acquisition. That Compass acquisition, which was not of a publicly traded company, that happened at the end of the year. I think you could see something much bigger than that in 25.
Excellent predictions, you two. I got to go. Lisa's got to go. Welcome back, you two. Looking forward to seeing you next week on the pod.
Awesome,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
On August 17th, the rules of the game changed. You know that. And now there is more opportunity than ever for the best agents to capture market share. Talking about the agents who are true knowledge brokers, expert advisors to their clients, and masters of the craft. You're one of those agents. That's why you're here. Or if you want to be one of those agents, one thing you need to do right now is invest in your client experience. We all have CRMs, but CRMs are designed to nurture and convert leads. You can't treat your clients like leads. That's one of the biggest reasons agents lose referrals and repeat business. What you need is a CEP, a client experience platform, to give your clients the best digital experience possible. The CEP my team and I use is Mosaic. Mosaic kicks in when a lead becomes a client, providing a seamless experience from search to closing, transaction management to long-term client retention. It gives you all of the tools you need to impress your clients and showcase your value, helping you generate more referrals, repeat business, and client loyalty. Mosaic is a huge competitive advantage for agents, but spots are limited in each market, and some are already full. Head to mosaic.io, or click the link in the description to see if there's any availability in your market. Don't miss your chance to build a lasting edge over the competition. At BMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code Knowledge Brokers and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today.